All right, good morning, everybody. Welcome to Genetics Fall 2020. This is kind of weird. I haven't actually done uh, like a regular course online. I did talk online this summer, which was pretty funky, but that's a bit of a special case. Um, all right, so this is going to be interesting. It's going to be especially interesting for lab, but we'll get to lab when we talk about that. Uh, crap. There's some button that I forgot to press. Do this. That's weird. There we go. That's the button I need. Oh, well, that didn't change much. Anyway, so welcome to Genetics. Happy to have you all here. This is going to be probably a little different from what you're normally used to, though you got a taste of this last semester due to the onlineification of classes. So the aim here is to essentially get you exactly the same quality of education, the kind of analytical skills, the knowledge and all of that, which you would get otherwise in class, but we're not going to meet apart from in lab, obviously. So what I'm going to do today, I've got my lesson plan here. Don't know why this is on like this bit of notepad that looks like an iPad. Works better than my iPad actually does. But essentially, I'm going to be, today is just like the usual intro kind of day. We'll get down to brass tacks next Tuesday when we properly start the kind of the information of the course. But essentially what I want to do today is give you your kind of introduction to the course, an overview of how I do stuff, just in general, how I teach, how I examine you in terms of testing your knowledge and your understanding, the kind of things which I emphasize as well, which is going to be important too. And also, what else have I got on here? Yeah, that's just like the usual stuff. But also kind of how to be successful in this course, right? This is probably one of the most challenging courses that you'll take at this university for your biology degree, right? And there's lots of good reasons for that. Because I mean, essentially, genetics as a course is at the fulcrum between, your transition from not being a university student, whether that's a high school student or someone coming out of the services or someone just coming back to college for, whatever reason to change your career, right? And transitioning you to essentially being a full-on biology major who's going to be taking a wide variety of varied courses, right, in the biological sciences, right? And so as a transition course, it's kind of an awkward one because, essentially it's going to be building upon what you've learned in GenBio 1 and 2 as well, but mostly GenBio 1, which for some of you is a fairly hard course as well, because I taught that course for a couple of years, so I'm kind of familiar with that as well. But also we really need to give you some of the like real like foundational genetic stuff which you're going to rely on for the rest of your courses in biology, right? And so that's where the difficulty lies, right? So essentially what we have to do is make sure that you got all the stuff which you were supposed to get in GenBio 1, and kind of build on that, right? Kind of expand upon that, but also go really into the weeds and a lot of stuff which you'll need for when you take evolution, microbiology, which I think most of you should take after this. If you were to take my developmental biology course, which is a 4,000 level course, then what we learn here in terms of gene regulation will seem like a walk in the park, right? So essentially, it's kind of like at that transition from one to the other. And that is what makes it really tough, right? Because there's an awful lot of material to cover. And we're going to be starting on some fairly kind of nuggety concepts, which you may have come across before or you may not have, but you certainly wouldn't have gone into the kind of detail that we're going to be going into in this course, right? And so I'm not, oh, thank you, Joshua. Yeah, this Joshua I had for GenBio 1 and genetics a little while ago. This is my quarantine beard, seeing how long I can grow it before I have to go back, full time. Hope to get it down to my chest. Anyway, sorry, temporarily distracted by that. Good job, Joshua. Oh, hey, Gabriella, too. Where was I? God, completely derailed my train of thought. So this isn't to scare you, and I don't mean it from that point of view. It's to prepare you, right? So this is where you're going to have to really get down and be very disciplined with how you study and how you learn, right? Because this is essentially a rolling tsunami of information. There is no let up whatsoever. In the other section, the Monday, Wednesday, Friday, there maybe be time for catch-up classes. We don't have that time here. It's just going to be constant on, full-on genetics, right? And so there are some things that we can do to help you, right? One of which is we've got a bunch of homeworks on Blackboard. Let me see if I can share my screen. All right, well, this is what my computer looks like. Okay, let's go over here. Where you at? Right, so this is actually my view of the Blackboard web page, but yours will look pretty similar. You just won't get to see everybody else's grades, right? Because that's my job. Where are we? Here we go. Right, so we've got a bunch of homeworks. These more or less tie in. We've got a scary chi-squared value table here, which we'll be using later. This is, or these, sorry, are really to practice your vocabulary, right? And genetics is a language all of its own, right? Which not many people study as a language. But if you can't talk the lingo, then you're not going to be able to understand what the hell I'm talking about, right? And you're not going to be able to explain to me what you mean either, right? So language in biology is a much neglected part of learning biology, right? There's a lot of words, awful lot of words, which you need to know in order to understand the subject material, right? And these homeworks are in part to help you with that language. They kind of more or less tie in with what we're talking about. Sometimes they kind of go off in different directions. But they're there to, in large part, to kind of keep you going on that kind of constant learning, refreshing of some of the details, essentially, of the material that we'll be studying. Their other job, and this is also an important one, although kind of an unintentional benefit in a sense, is this helps you get your grade up, right? So there are two big ways in which you can ensure that you get a C or better in this class, right? Because you need, technically, a D is a pass. In terms of biology and in terms of our major, we do not consider a D a pass. A C is a pass. Because without a C, you won't be able to get into evolution. And without a C in genetics or evolution, you won't be able to get your major, right? So C and better is the goal, right? And the two ways in which you're going to get a C or better, other than obviously studying material and showing up to class, and, doing all those other student things, is do all of these homeworks, right? They're there as a not a gift essentially, but a helping hand to you to be able to boost your grade. They're worth 20%. I'd have to kind of do the math. I think it's about 20% of the lecture part of the grade, right? Which is 3/4 of the overall grade. Sorry, breakfast is coming back to say hello. And so make sure you do those, right? You're gonna, and You do get a free get out of jail card, if you just forget or something crazy happened or whatever, just let me know and I'll be able to open up for you for one of these, right? But don't make a habit of it, right? What I would suggest, and I'll even show you, dum dum dum. All right. Well, this isn't particularly interesting, right? Well, this is my Outlook, right? So this is how I do email and stuff. Not everybody does. But I've even put in here when I have classes, right? Not that I'm likely to forget, because that would be a terrible thing for a professor to do. But this just shows you that everything that I need to put in here, meetings, deadlines. Oh shit, I should actually put in another deadline. I've got a really big thing to get done by the end of the month. All kinds of things, right, are going to be in here. So put these homeworks in whatever scheduling thing you use on your phone or your computer or whatever. Put these deadlines in, right, so that you never forget one, right? Don't leave it to the last minute because, internet problems and so on and so forth may, no, I don't want that. I want this. There we go. Yeah, that wasn't actually what I wanted to look at. This was. There we go. Yeah, internet problems and so on and so forth may trip you up, right, if you leave it to the last minute to these homeworks, right? So get those in your schedule, just kind of get that blocked out, right? That's one thing you need to do, right? The second thing that will help you get the grade that you want, which is a C or better, is do really well in the lab, right? The lab is designed in part, I mean, there's a whole bunch of, again, instructional stuff and skills and so on and so forth, which we want you to get, but also that will boost your grade. And that's what happens every time that I teach this, right? Typically, people will do far, far better in their lab than they will do in the lecture part of the grade. And that's normal because the lecture part, a big part of it is exams, right? And so all of those exams, they're hard, right? And they're going to be, I don't know, exams are challenging, whatever format they're held in. But they're going to be all online as well in this case, because obviously we're teaching this course online, right? So exams are hard, right? I'm going to be testing you in ways which are hard as well, right? Because obviously I want to make sure that you properly understand this rather than just being exceptionally good at your Google foo, right? To be able to find the answers. And so these two things, the homeworks and the lab, will help you kind of average up your overall grade, right? And in a sense, that's not really an accident, because what we want to do is make sure that you're well-rounded students. We don't want to just make exam-taking monsters, right, which are capable of just, ticker tape reciting biological facts, because that's of very little use or importance, unless you're a doctor, of course. I think that's really important if you're a doctor. So being able to kind of be the whole package of a student, where you can just keep on top of your shit and just make sure you do everything that you're supposed to do, is a really important part of being a successful student, right? So on top of all of that, right, you're going to have exams every 3 to 4 weeks at the very most, right? So they're kind of constant, right? You're constantly going to be revising for exams. And what I would suggest most strongly of all, right, don't wait till the day before your exam to revise for it. Right, this week is a bit of a freebie because we don't really talk about very much of particular import in terms of material on the first day of class. But next week, in your schedule, block off like an hour a day, right? If you can, right? Because I know a lot of you have really crazy schedules and it's all over the place for work or kids or other classes or whatever. But put in your schedule at least an hour a day if you can. Maybe stuff that to the weekends, I don't know, where that's genetic study time, right? Because simply studying the PowerPoints or listening to me drone on about genetics or whatever, right, isn't going to magically make that stuff make sense, right? You're going to need at least an hour a day constantly just going over, okay, what of this crazy ass shit do I not understand? Well, all of it, right? Okay, so we've got a long list. And then the next day it'll be a slightly shorter list, right? Because you've already got some of that stuff. And then of that list, you might want to bring some of that to class the next time. And so, first 15 minutes of class, we can spend going over stuff which, you didn't get the last time around we did it, right? So it's this continual, constant rolling back over stuff, right? So that it really starts going in, right? It's not a matter of relying on your short-term memory, which is like 2 to 3 days at most, right? To be able to remember this stuff. It's about, properly kind of getting the big picture, building up your whole kind of scaffold of kind of knowledge and understanding, right? Because, and this is a thing that I often talk about to students, when you see a professor teaching, whatever subject or course or whatever they happen to be teaching about, you think that professor is just, well, they know everything, right? They're just amazing. They've got all of this knowledge. They can pull these different things together. They can tell funny anecdotes about stuff, and they just really know their shit. Well, the reason is because we've been doing this a really long time, right? And so you're where I was at. Oh, damn. That was 22 years ago. 23 maybe. Yeah, I started my degree in 1996. Yeah, I know. Terrible, huh? That's actually longer ago than some of you have been around for, right? So what that means in practical terms, in terms of my knowledge, is that I got all those building blocks, same as I'm hoping to give you, but I've been building on those and I've been connecting those with other bits of information, and basically it's like this it's like those kind of like jungle gyms, you see at the kids parks, those big domes that kids are like hanging off all the time, right? Essentially knowledge is one of those, right? You have lots of little bits of pieces, but they're joined to all kinds of other bits of information via all kinds of different connections, right? And so right now, has anybody seen the Lego movie? Oh, well, some of you are nodding. That's good, because essentially what you are at in terms of genetics is the mind of the special right now, right? So you're a bit of a blank slate, not completely. Morning, love. But essentially we're going to be laying down those nodes of information, right? And then you're going to start connecting them together in your own particular way, which isn't going to be the same as mine, because you have different interests and you're going to be exposed to different things than I am, right? My degree was microbiology, right? That's what I kind of specialize in, largely because I really didn't like plants. Gotta say, plants not my favorite thing to study. I like growing them and eating them, but I don't particularly. They're not a big interest of mine, right? So that's why I changed my major from biotechnology, which had to do plant biology. I was like, shit, no, I'm not going to do that, to microbiology, right? So my personal kind of like construction of that jungle gym, right, is going to be different to yours, but you have to start doing that, right? So we're going to be giving you, bits of stuff, Mendelian genetics. We're going to be giving you some molecular genetics. We're going to give you bits of this, bits of that. Then later on, when you take evolution, which is typically the next course after this, or maybe even microbiology, you're going to take those bits of information, you're going to start slotting them into your personal jungle gym. And you're going to go, oh, hey, that furry guy in genetics, he told me about bacteria responding to particular different food sources in terms of gene regulation, right? Oh, that ties into this because we're learning about these bacteria that live on lactose, right? Kind of like Clostridium or something like that. So you're going to start putting together that mesh. And when you look back in 10 or 20 years, depending on your personal career path, you will see this for what it is, which is starting to lay down those particular nodes of information, right? And so when you talk to someone that's in your, at that point in your current position, then they'll be like, wow, this person really knows their shit, right? And then you'll start to see why. But it's hard for you to see that in the moment, because obviously, you're who you are now, not who you will be, right? So what you need to do over those weekly, daily recap sessions is start kind of putting those bits of information into their particular places and start connecting them to other bits of information, right? Because I'm not going to be testing you purely on what facts you can remember. That's really important, right? So there's a bunch of facts in PowerPoints. There's a bunch of facts I'm going to be telling you in class. If you can bear listening to me, there's some audio files, and we'll talk about this in a second, where you can listen to me talking about the PowerPoints, right? Some of the information that you need, some of the stuff that will allow you to be successful in the exams is to be found in those various sources, right? The rest of it is how well you understand that information, right? Because I am not interested in how good you are at memorizing stuff. Because when you get on to what hopefully will be the next stage of your career, whether that's grad school or a job, biology related job or whatever, right? Then someone who's going to be working in managing you in that position is not going to be relying on your ability to memorize stuff, right? Because that's what Google's for. Hey, love, can you let Luna out, please? Excellent. Sorry, dog just came down, needs to go out to the toilet. Hopefully you'll see her in a little bit. She's super cute. They're going to rely on you being able to put stuff together, right? To take different bits of information and be able to kind of figure out how they fit together and what they mean, right? So a big part of what I'm going to be assessing you on, and hopefully going to be teaching you, is how do these different things fit together, right? And that's understanding, right? And so you're not going to get that simply by going to, let's go back to, come on. Oh yeah, these are all the PowerPoints, right? Just kind of memorizing all of this stuff, right? You're just not going to be as successful as you would wish to be just by taking that approach. That may have done you well in high school or in previous classes, and it may do you well in the future as well, right? Different aspects of biology kind of lend themselves to this in different ways. But given that genetics underlies everything, right? Even giant pandas, right? Which I personally hate giant pandas. Even when they're like pregnant and they're going to be producing cute little giant pandas, I hate giant pandas, right? It's like my pet peeve. Even for those most useless, genetically pointless creatures present on the earth, right? Genetics still has an important part to explaining why they are the way they are, right? So given that genetics is really like, it's all biology, right? Whether you study, how a protein folds in a particular way, or how an immunoglobulin recognizes an antigen, or whether you're really interested in whether bats fly into wind turbines because they look like giant bats or what, right? Genetics is underneath everything. Oh, got to get the chat back up. Someone said so. Oh, don't start me on pandas, Gabriella. That's a whole nother tangent. And I'm not alone, right? This isn't like a particular quirk of Matt Crook. Other people don't like giant pandas too. So it's not just a me thing. Anyway, we'll save that one for another day. Doggo, come say hello to the class. Hello. This is my, where's she at? There she is. This is my dog, Luna. Look at that squish. Come and say she's a teenager, which is why she's only just got up. And you, lazy ass dog. She cute. She is supposedly a black-mouthed cur, which is some kind of hunting dog. She likes sniffing stuff. She's very, come on, up. But she's also incredibly lazy and spends most of her time on the couch.
Yeah, my dog does the same thing.
Yeah, but she's super cute. She's like a stress ball. It's good for, kneading her when you're stressed out or whatever. Where was I at? Right, so all of these things are here to help you, but on their own, they're not going to be enough, right? Oh, yeah. Also, you're more than welcome to share pictures of your own cats and dogs and pets and things as well, which is also great. All right, so that's basically the course. What we're going to be doing is obviously we're going to be doing this online. So what I've done for you is we have all these PowerPoints, right? So these are, I guess, kind of the bedrock, right, in a sense of the course, right? So these will have all of the kind of structure for particular lectures. They will have a lot of the information, right? Again, they're not going to have all of it, but they will have most of it in the course. And they look, I don't know, here's one scale. This is a 32 slide PowerPoint on control of gene expression in eukaryotes, right? So there's a whole load of stuff in here, right? We got like overview stuff, we've got details. This is all about chromatin formation, epigenetics, histone sliding, things like that, right? There's also some notes down here, right? So these are kind of like the bedrock of the class. That's a pretty good way of putting it. And they're all here for you, right? So all of the material that you will be studying is already present on Blackboard. So if you're particularly nuts, right, and you don't have very much else to do, you can go through all of these, right now if you want. Some of it's not going to make much sense, but anyway, so what I would strongly suggest is that you go through these before the class where we're going to be studying them, right? This is where that discipline comes in. Because a lot of the language, a lot of the concepts that we are going to cover are going to be such that you'll really struggle to get them the first time round, right? And that's not because you're dumb at all. It's because they're difficult, right? And it's also something that I went through as well, so, and not just 22 years ago when I started teaching this, there's some times I was like, what the hell does that mean? Right? Because I've studied this stuff for like 2 decades, so I had to go through and relearn all this stuff again for several chunks of this stuff that I don't kind of deal with normally in my, everyday life. Okay, so go through these, right? Download them, go through them, make any notes, right? And particularly not notes just copying stuff down on there, because although that's handy, it's not really the key thing. But make notes of stuff that you don't understand, right? What does he mean by incomplete dominance? Big question mark, right? You'll be able to keep an eye open for that when we talk about it in class, the day or so after. There are also, if you want to kind of get a jump on what those various PowerPoints are talking about, right? Because they are just a collection of slides, right? So you're not necessarily going to know the various import of all these different things, or how to interpret these slides, right? This is about, you funny dog, methylation, for example, right? So if you wanted to have a walkthrough for that, these are me. They're like 20 to 30 minutes long, generally speaking, just talking you through what that PowerPoint is, basically, right? So all of that is great preparation for the class itself. And again, the way to be really successful at this is to have this happen multiple times, right? If all you do is just kind of watch the YouTube video of this class, or you log into Zoom and you listen to me nattering on for an hour or so, you'll get some of it for sure, right? Because you're all good enough to be in genetics, but you're not going to get the majority of it, right? That will come from going back over and go, oh, what the hell? That didn't make no sense. Go look up that on Google or Wikipedia, or go back to the textbook or whatever, right? That's how you start building up those connections and reinforcing those concepts, right? So that when you come to the exam, you're not scrambling around trying to find what on earth I'm talking about. What is he on about? Dihybrid cross? Epistasis? I don't understand any of that crap, right? You're going to be lost, right? But if you can go over this every day, it's like learning another language, right? You will become fluent by the end of the course, guaranteed, right? So it takes a lot more work than just showing up to class, whether that's in person or online, to be successful. And that's probably the biggest thing that you'll learn, right? It takes a lot of work. Typically, they talk about, what is it? For every 3-hour class, for every credit hour, you should be doing about 3 hours work.
Yeah.
Outside of class, right? So for genetics as a whole, for credit hours, you should be doing about 12 hours a week outside of class, right? It's a crazy amount of work. But if you do that, and you do be smart about how you use that time, then you will be very successful at this class, right? It's not rocket science, right? It's just genetics. So anyway, these audio recordings are there for you if you want kind of extra, I don't know, guidance, work through whatever of the PowerPoints that you're going to be giving. Then, I have to go to YouTube. Where's my channel? Don't look at some of those things. I've got a very eclectic taste in YouTube videos. Okay. Go away. Don't want that. Get off of it. Right. So anyway, you can actually, I'll send you you can find this yourself. The Wandering Professor, that's me. But anyway, once we start loading these up, I'll send you the channel playlist. And as you can see, here's me. You can actually, if you go further down here, look, beard is even shorter. It's like a timeline of beard growth, right? Which is kind of funny. You can watch some lectures on astrobiology if you're particularly inclined. That's what I taught last in the spring semester. But anyway, all of the YouTube videos will go up here, right? So whenever we finish this class, this will go up online as well, right? I'll upload it onto class. I'll also upload the chat, which is kind of over there for me. So if there are any questions about particular stuff in the chat, which I hope, hey, quit it, which I hope there will be, then that will also get uploaded to Blackboard, right? So you'll be able to go over this stuff. And if there's things that you just don't understand, you look through your notes, you'll be able to go back to when I talk about them in person, right? In terms of the YouTube video, you'll be able to go back to the PowerPoints, right? See, how does that line up to what he was saying in the PowerPoint? We also have, oh, God, weighty thing. Come on. The annoying thing about Zoom is it covers up. Bloody hell. Let's get that. Oh, let's smallify that. Okay, where are we at now? It's the only way I could get back to, because the Zoom controls mask my tab bar at the top. Anyway, where are we at? Let's go over here. Oh, I'm causing more problems than I'm solving here. All right. where are we at? Let's go back here. I should know this, right? Because I'm the one that made it. So here's our schedule. I often refer to this myself to make sure I remember what we're supposed to be doing on a particular day. And that's partly because I've got two sections of this and they're not entirely in sync. All right, so this is essentially what we'll be covering. Exam 1, kind of scary time. This is the dates of when the homeworks are due. These are all the different, there's some other information in here which is useful, like Labor Day. Unfortunately, that doesn't happen to be on one of the days that we have class, so you still have to come to class. So this will have all of the that kind of information you need, but also, pardon me, there's a list of readings, right, for your textbook. And now this is all kind of funky this semester because I've done something weird and wonderful with textbooks. But supposedly you should have a electronic copy of this. Ta-da! Right, and this is actually a pretty nice, hello love, pretty cool textbook, right? So essentially, I'm not going to show you know what textbook looks like, right? It's not really much of a surprise. In this list of readings, there's a bunch of chapters and sections of chapters which will help explain some of the material that we're covering, right? So again, as you go through that material, as you go through each of your lectures and you kind of make a list of the, I don't understand this, or I need further clarification, the textbook is also another resource that you can go to be able to try and answer those questions. You know, I also do an awful lot of just flat out Google searching, right? So the other day I was actually trying to remember the terms for different types of epistasis, right? This is one of the things that we're going to be learning about later. And it's pretty cool. I actually use this a lot in my own research. And Wikipedia, even though it's much maligned, has a lot of really, really good information. Nature citables, right? So we've got all kinds of different epistasis. We've got, they call it different things here. Oh, that's in haploid organisms, don't want that. Right, so there's a lot of different terms so that if you come, like we're talking about recessive epistasis, what the hell does he mean about recessive epistasis, right? Then just, if I can spell it right. There you go. Yeah, typing isn't my strongest suit. Right, so there's, just find this. And this is actually something that I read because I was like, oh, there's this and then there's that. Just trying to refresh my memory, right? Because there's only so much space in here that things can get stuck in, right? And this actually was a pretty shitty web page. I don't know why I brought this one back up again. But you'll find out on your own, like good sources of information, right? And so this is, I don't know if I was keeping tab, what's this, like the 5th or 6th plank of material that you're going to be relying on, right? And so this is really, this is how you develop as a scientist, right? As a individual of intellectual study, which is really what, you know, being a university student is, right? You're going to have to figure out how to find this information for yourself, right? Because I can tell you some of it, but A, we have a limited amount of time, and B, I don't know everything, right? You know, I hopefully know everything that is needed to be known about genetics for teaching this class, but I sure as shinola do not know everything about genetics, and that is a definite, right? So this is another one of the ways in which you're going to start building that knowledge of your own, right? And whoa, that's pretty funky. Smooth and rugged. I like that. I can be both smooth and rugged, depending on whether I've shaved or not, I guess. Anyway, enough of bad jokes. You'll just have to put up with those. You can just blank them out if you wish. Oh, questions about textbook. So it depends, right? So actually, I'm like one of the worst persons to ask this question about, because this is something that they kind of sprung on us last semester without telling us about it. And so faculty know next to nothing about what's going on. Essentially, if there's an ebook version of the textbook, then you will be sent either a link to this, or there's some kind of like, actually Marina looks like she knows more about this than I do, which isn't difficult. So either you'll get it as a part of some kind of app or website where you can go and read it for the duration of the course. Or if not, you'll get it sent to you by post. I don't actually know which version you'll be getting. I think you'll be getting the ebook version, because this edition does have an ebook version with it, which is why we changed this semester to the 7th edition of this textbook. Now, there is, if you don't want to get the, Jaguar Day 1 is really where you need to go look about this, right? So you can see how you're going to get your textbook. You're going to see how much it's going to cost you, right? So this textbook will be $75 automatically coming out of your fees, or added to your fees, for each 3 credit hour class textbook. So you can just go, that's cool, because that's easy, and you know the money just rolls into your student loans or whatever. Or if you don't want this, you need to opt out of all of this for all of your classes for this semester. It's kind of like an all or nothing deal. So I'm not going to get into the politics of why this was done and all that sort of stuff, because it's long and convoluted, and to be honest, it's not super interesting. But if you wish, I can put up I don't know, I got sent a letter like lining out what all the various pros and cons of Jaguar Day 1 are. It's supposed to be to make your life easier and to make sure that you all get your textbooks. That's really the aim of it. The flip side of that is that it's also an inbuilt cost. For Cross, in terms of why it wasn't wrapped in with registration, it should be part, in terms of your course fees, I don't really know how the money for the textbook is being handling. I'm sorry, I don't know more about this, but it's, again, it was something that was just dumped on us the end of last semester. So I don't really know the particular mechanics of all of it. I don't know I don't think it's part of a class fee. Again, I don't know. I can't really speak with any confidence about how this is handled. But if you do have questions, I can't find it very easily. But I'll post up the letter that I was sent, so you can have all of the information that I have, basically, and then you can make a decision on your own merits, essentially. But yeah, there's also contacts at the bookstore, which will be in that letter at the bottom. I can't remember. Christina, I think is her name. And they'll be able to answer all your questions about that. So you just got to make a decision about whether that's something that will work for you or whether it will not. I couldn't actually tell you one way or another. The downside is that you have to do it for all of your courses. So I don't know how that's going to work out in practice. It's a very new thing. I think this is the first semester that it was coming in, I think. Yeah. And so I'm sorry I can't be of more help. If you do opt out, there are plenty of older versions of this textbook flipping around. This is 7th edition. The 6th edition is exactly the same as far as I can tell. And it is worth getting the textbook because, in part, oh geez, this is kind of like a workout while I'm teaching. Where are we at? One of the particular useful things about this. Let's see if I can find some good example. Right. Oh, linkage. Oh boy. Yeah, this is something that's going to cause you nightmares. Right. So one of the cool things about the textbook is it has lots of problems that you can work through. Right. And so there is, unfortunately, a bunch of math that goes with genetics. Right. I know we're biologists, and so math should be something that other people do, but it's something that biologists also have to do as well. Right. So this is this is the linkage and recombination chapter. I don't know if they give the answers. I think they do at the end or something like that. You probably know more about that than I do, right? But you'll be able to work through these, right? And a lot of these types of problems you will only be able to do well through practice, right? And we do some practice in class for some of these problems, but you need to do some of that on your own time. And so the textbook is a really good source of those problems for you to practice those particular skills or particular concepts. Right. So it is in the past I've been a little bit ambivalent about textbooks because I've kind of ambivalent about them in person. But one of their real strengths is those worked problems at the end of each chapter, right? And so you should essentially, again, right, this is an ever-growing list of stuff that you have to do. Add that to the end of it, right? After doing all the other stuff that I've told you to do, go through the work problems for each chapter, right? And essentially what that does is that they will ask you the same questions that I'm asking you, but in a different way, right? And that means that you'll be like, whoa, that wasn't exactly like what he said in class, but the material is exactly the same. So by learning to do it in a slightly different way, you'll learn it a lot better, right? So it's essentially, you come through the jungle gym from one side and you can come from it the other side and you can get to the same point. What else? I'll make sure I've got a half hour left, so we're not too okay, so essentially that kind of covers all the materials available, right? So the aim very much is that I wish to provide you all that I can to help you be successful, right? Obviously, I can't make you be successful because you're the ones that are taking the exams, not me. But hopefully everything will be there that you would need to be able to be successful, right? And for whatever particular approach works best for you, because everybody studies differently, right? So you need to figure out which is the most successful way of studying for you and then pick whatever materials suit that approach the best, right? That's really the case, because personally, reading the textbook, it just sends me straight to sleep, right? I read a page of it and I'm like, oh my God, I'm so bored, right? But I could spend hours like wandering around like Alice in Wonderland on the internet, like finding different stuff and going, ooh, that's interesting. And then again, a bit of a tangent and then kind of coming back a little bit, right? So that's how I study, but that's not how everybody studies, right? So I'm not going to tell you to do that because that might not work for you, but it may do, right? Or the textbook, you might be a very good, linear learner, right? So textbooks will be exceptionally good for you in that case, right? It just depends, right? You got to figure that out for yourself. Talked about homeworks and the like already. The other big part of the course are the 4 exams. 4. Make sure I've held up the right number of fingers. Yeah, 4 exams, right? So essentially this course is going to be split, as one would expect, into 4 chunks, right? We're going to have what is called transmission genetics, right? Which is really about Mendel. Essentially, well, it's not all about Mendel. Mendel just got there first. It's really about how traits are passed from one generation to the next. And there's a lot of math in there as well, right? That's going to be one chunk. That'll be one exam, essentially. right? We're also going to have molecular genetics, right? You know, DNA structure, gene structure. You know, some of the kind of like the foundational stuff of genetics, essentially. What's going on at the very kind of like bottom level. We'll talk a lot about cell division, DNA replication. You know, how do those things work? That'll be another exam, right? So the whole course, I can never remember exactly how it's divided. That's why I have the schedule, because I've got absolutely shockingly bad memory for stuff like this. So that's why I write everything down. All right, here you go. So transmission genetics and cell division, which is, oh, look at that. We got some statistics here. Yeah, you can't avoid it, I'm afraid. Right, so math, lots of math. You know, funny aside, I did really well in my undergraduate degree. I was actually second in the class of a couple of hundred students in University of Birmingham in the UK. That's not Birmingham, Mississippi. It is Mississippi, I think. It's Birmingham, UK, because they all speak like this. Anyway, the one course I did really, really badly, and I actually came within 1% of failing it, was mathematics. I was within like that close of having to take it again. So I always joke that's why I'm a biologist, right? Because I absolutely suck at math. But we still have to do some math, and so that's what we're going to do here. So anyway, all of essentially from today, right? Is the math going to be cry your eyes out? Well, that's a very relative question, Gabriella. What I like to say to my students is, if I can do it, you can do it, right? I am as far from a math genius as you can get. A little bit more than 2 + 2. If you can, it's more than you can do on your fingers and toes. I'm not going to show you pictures of my toes. That'll terrify you. But it's more than you can do on your fingers, and less than what you need a Nobel Prize in mathematics to do. There you go. That's probably the span of it. Oh yeah, no, none of that scary stuff. That, I mean, you might need to use a calculator. Punnett squares, crosses, probability. There's an awful lot about probability here. Oh, sorry, Adrian, I was about to say something inappropriate there, but you can thank whoever you like. Anyway, yeah, so essentially it's about, there you go. Here's a good way of describing it. Biology is noisy, right? It's inherently noisy, right? And the reason for that is because it's incredibly complex, right? So even though the odds of you getting, let's say, a boy and a girl is 50-50, right? Is exactly 50-50 because of the way meiosis works, right? And, you know, sexual reproduction. I ended up with 2 girls, right? And so the probability of that is 25%, right, overall. So I'm kind of under the odds for getting, I mean, I could have another child, you know, if I really wanted to kind of see how the probability works out, but that's kind of an expensive way of doing, you know, kind of basic math. But essentially, that's the kind of stuff we're going to be thinking about, right? And then we take that a bit further, and when we look at kind of essentially larger groups of individuals, all right, we'll be doing stuff like this with when we get onto linkage down here, and linkage has like 3 periods associated with it, and for good reason, right? We have an expected outcome, right? And you'll be doing this also in the lab as well. How do we figure out whether our actual outcome is close to that expected outcome or not? And if it's not exactly the same, which it won't be because biology is noisy, is it close enough to call it good? Or is it far enough apart that something else might be going on that we're not taking into account? Right? So that's essentially the kind of biology that we're concerned with, right? A, figuring out what should we expect, and then B, trying to figure out whether or not what we get is what we should expect. It's that kind of stuff. Like the thing with like lots and lots of symbols and stuff, we won't be doing too much of that. But there will be equations, right? So, and that also takes in DNA replication and homologous recombination. And then exam 2, right, is from this date to this date, right? It is all of the material from the end of the last exam to the day of that exam, right? So although inherently some of this stuff will be cumulative because, I mean, we're building like a knowledge structure right here. So we're going to be coming back to some of the stuff we covered earlier in the course. It's not explicitly cumulative, right? So I'm not going to be testing you stuff in exam 2, like, which is all the way back here, right? So you don't, once you've covered that stuff, although you need to kind of keep it in your mind, right? You don't need to go back and cover and restudy that earlier stuff, right? You need to focus on the stuff at hand. And then we got transcription, translation, and then we finish off with gene reg. Girls are expensive. Well, yeah, girls, huh? They haven't reached the crazy years yet. They're just getting there, so that it'll be interesting. And then we finish off with gene reg and biotechnology and transgenics, basically, right? So the final exam is not cumulative. It is on everything to do with gene reg, biotechnology, and transgenics, right? So you don't need to worry when you're studying for exam 4, oh crap, Mendel, right? What did we do with Mendel again? You don't have to go all the way back to the beginning of the course.
That's nice.
Yeah, well, I mean, essentially, this all builds on everything else, right? It's all part of a larger whole. But it will also mean that you just kind of keep on top of that standing wave of genetics information that you're currently riding, right? You don't have to go jump off and get onto a different one. The exams themselves will be all online, right? Because this is all online. There are going to be challenges with the exam that will require you to take them differently. And part of this is because inherently online exams are easy to game, right? So this is an open book exam. I'm not going to force you to just stay looking at the browser and not anything else because I don't know how I could do that. So there is going to be an inherent expectation that you'll be able to quickly look up some of this stuff, right? And that's fine, because that's stuff that you should just know, some kind of like basic language or basic facts, things like that, right? But because it is open book, this exam will potentially be a little bit harder than you would be doing in person in the classroom, right? There will be questions that will test your understanding of the material, and you're not going to be able to find those answers anywhere, right, other than in your own head. They're not going to be in your notes. They're not going to be in Wikipedia. They're not going to be in prior copies of the exam, which may be floating around, right? They are only going to be in your head as a result of the work that we've done in this class, right? And typically speaking, I tend to, do like 50% basic recall, like just cramming type questions. What is a nucleosome, right? How many base pairs of DNA are in a nucleosome, for example, right? You should be able to look that up real quick. I'm going to ask you about 30%, give or take, understanding, right? Which would be, something like, well, how does chromatin structure affect like gene expression, right? For example. It's like, oh, well, it's going to be, oh, that's right. It's going to, obviously, if there's a nucleosome covering up that bit of DNA, it's not going to be accessible to transcription factors, for example. And then the remaining part, and these are going to be the harder questions. They're either going to be ones where you're going to have to calculate stuff, right? So linkage problems, chi-square tests, other kinds of stuff like that, probability, or they're going to be questions where you're going to have to take either two different bits of information and like smoosh them together and then generate the answer, or they're going to be like a hop, skip, and jump type question, right? Where I give you a bit of information at the beginning and maybe I give you the answer at the end, but you've got to figure out something in between, right? And so without that understanding of where that other bit in between fits, you're never going to be able to answer the question, right? And so the reason why I stress, I mean, biology is a bunch of just knowledge as well, right? It's just being able to pull stuff out of your head and know what stuff means. When someone says something, you know what they're talking about, right? But to be successful as a biologist, right, in whatever field that you're going to be working in, you actually need to understand what this stuff means, because you're going to encounter situations or problems or whatever, right, which you don't have all the information available to you for. That may be because your supervisor absolutely sucks, right, and they didn't give you all the stuff that you're supposed to have. It may be because you are at the cutting edge of that knowledge and no one else knows that information. That information is not known, right? That's actually an awful lot of biology, right? You may think it's all known, and actually there's just like this huge big frontier of just stuff we just don't know about, right? Yet. Hopefully we will, but we don't necessarily right now, right? And in those situations, if all you can do is just recall facts, then you're just not going to succeed, right? And so that's why a big part of how I want to assess you, or how I will assess you in the exams, will be those kinds of questions, right? And those are the difficult ones. Now, the challenge, yeah, I mean, closed book tests, people think open book tests are like great, but they're actually a lot harder in many ways than closed book tests. One of the challenges too is that due to the structure of it being online and so on, you get presented one question at a time. You answer that, and then you go on to the next one. As soon as you go on to the next one, you can't go back, right? So you lose potentially that ability to read the whole exam and kind of get clues about how different things fit together, which I, in prior semesters, I would sprinkle in there. Because as soon as you've done one question, that's it, you're done. You can't go back and answer it again, right? So you can't do what I would normally suggest you do, which is answer all the easy stuff first, right? And then you go back and then you figure out the harder ones, and then you figure out the even harder ones, right? In terms of exam taking strategy, you can't do that. And also the order in which you're presented the questions is going to be random, right? And part of that is so that you can't be on the phone with someone else basically saying, hey, you got question like 21 going up right now? Not that you would, I would hope, but some people may be tempted to, right? So the order is totally random, right? And actually sometimes even the order of the answers, which one is A, B, C, D, or E, is also going to be random, right? And so it's actually going to be, in some ways, a harder exam to take than it would be if you were doing it in person, right? So be prepared for that. The flip side is you have the whole day to take it, right? So it says here, for example, the last exam is on the 1st of December, which seems like a long way away, but it'll creep up pretty quickly. You'll have the whole of the 1st of December. I think, yeah, it's actually, I typically do it from the start of when a class would start normally. And what I'll also do is I'll actually be on here on Zoom for at least like 30, 40 minutes of that class period in case anyone has any problems with the exam. So you can take it in the class period if you wish, or you can take it any point up until midnight of that day, right? There's no force complete, right? So you don't actually have to do it all in one sitting is another potential benefit. So you could do it for half an hour and go, whew, shit, that was enough for me. And you're not going to be actually, yeah, I think you can kind of go out of it. I'm not 100% sure about all this, so don't take this as gospel because I haven't actually done one of these exams myself. But you're going to have a certain amount of time to do it, and you can do it at any point during that day, right? So if you do have questions, you can always email me, or if you do it during the class period, you can actually ask me in person. Like, I don't understand this particular question. What exactly do you mean? I'll be around at least for, I'll probably be drinking a coffee and reading the news, to be honest, for the first at least 45, 50 minutes of the exam period. So you can do that in turn. So they're going to be hard, right? And you need to work really hard to prepare yourself for them. Typically, actually, I don't think I got any in the exams. I don't think anybody got an A this last semester.
Like in any of the exams?
No.
So if someone did, would you be highly suspicious?
No, not necessarily. I mean, I've been doing this for a while, so if it's a student that's doing really well and asking lots of questions, then it'll be like, yay, super awesome. And that's not to say that you can't get good grades in them, right? But what I'm trying to say is that if you walk into them expecting it just to be just like flip through your notes and scan through the PowerPoint, then you're not going to be successful. So there's a lot of prep that needs to go into place. And what I really, really strongly convince you to do, which some people are already doing in the chat, you can do it in person or like you did, Kevin, or write questions down in chat, is ask questions, right? I'm going to put aside at least 10 minutes of every class period for questions from the previous class period, right? So go over this stuff. Figure out what you don't know, which is actually a big challenge, right? And then just ask me questions, right? And I will go through anything that you want, whatever big or small. And I guarantee you that whatever questions you ask, other people in your class will be wanting to ask those questions too, right? So you're not going to be like the guy in the dunce hat, that doesn't understand stuff. You're going to be the person that's actually helping out other people. Oh, good question, Gabriella. So in terms of etiquette, generally speaking, mute your microphone unless there's no background noise. I mean, that's really a background noise issue. So if you've got like noisy traffic or kids running around or workmen like knocking down walls behind you, mute your microphone until you need to ask something. But it's an open session, ask whatever you want, whenever you want type deal. That's really it. So really these sessions, I mean, this one's a different one because it's the first one of class, but these Zoom sessions, they're essentially a mix of lecture and office hours, right? Oh yeah, I've sometimes my cat comes yowling around and she's meow, that would be kind of distracting, right? But whenever you have a question, either, I think there's actually like a put your hand up button, maybe, I'm not sure, raise your hand thing. I don't know, that might be a different online teaching thing.
I think that's
but type of question, go in chat. If you're worried about like people thinking you're stupid, which you shouldn't, but if you are, and that's fine, you can actually ask me, I'll get to you in a second, Lindsay. You can ask me privately, right? And I will take all of those private communications out of the chat before posting it up on Blackboard, right? So if you've got a question about an exam, or you want to meet after the class or whatever, you can put that privately. If you've got a question that you think is stupid, but you really want to ask it, then ask it, but you can do it privately, and then I'll get rid of those before posting up the chat. So although I will be going over some of the material in these Zoom sessions, it's not going to be a complete lecture. It's going to be me picking out like the most salient points, like the tricky parts, and hopefully answering questions from you lot about the material that either we studied last class or that we're studying this class. That's why the preparing ahead of time is going to be so important, because that's going to give you those questions to ask so that you can do a better job of understanding what we're talking about. Got a couple of questions. For Lindsay, no, attendance will not be kept. The reason being is that, some days you may not be able to make it, or for whatever reason, it doesn't really matter. And also because these Zoom sessions are going to be posted to YouTube, right? So if you are unable to make class for whatever reason, then just catch up on Zoom. The only thing that you miss out on is the ability to ask questions in that Zoom session. But you can always just ask in the next one either. Also, if you want to talk in person, like about anything, be it exams or you have questions of your own or whatever, just let me know and I'll put up a one-to-one personal meeting with you at a time that works. So essentially that's like an extra office hours on top of that. So whatever you need, my aim is to be able to provide that, right? Sounds kind of cheesy, but that's the idea. Let me go back to some questions. Yeah, so question about there is no lab today because we're an incomplete week. I don't know why this university does it this way. It's totally nuts. It really screws up the labs, to be honest. So labs start next week for whoever lab you happen to be in. I'm doing 2 of the lab sections. Another Professor Maurice Penny,
Mhm.
Maurice, I know for sure, will be doing the other section. So I don't know which one you'll be in until I actually get to talk with you. So that's going to start next week. And that's going to be a little bit weird, but we'll talk about that in lab next week. So if you haven't, for people in my lab sections, I don't know how Maurice is dealing with it. You need to figure out a lab partner if you want to choose your own lab partner, right? And that's essentially the person that you'll be tag teaming with on alternate weeks, right? One week you'll go in and you'll do the work and you'll take the results and you share those with your lab partner who's not present. The next week they'll be doing that and you'll be staying at home, right? But we'll talk about those specific details in the lab itself, right? Don't know about creating a Gmail account. I don't mind about that whatsoever. That may be something down to Maurice, and I'll leave him to explain that. If you're not in my lab, oh, that's kind of sad. But don't worry about it. You'll be with Dr. Penny, right? So essentially, you're going to get exactly the same lab. The lab section that is up is exactly the same as the 2 that I'm hosting, the same materials. You'll be doing the same work. Hopefully you'll be getting the same experience too. But I'll leave it up to him to explain like the particular organizational differences. So again, you'll need to, for a bunch of those questions, you'll need to talk with Dr. Penny about that. Hopefully he'll explain things We've got a little while, right? Because labs don't start until I think Tuesday. I think is
Yeah.
Dr. Penny's.
Two.
Mine's Wednesday and Thursday. You'll be the guinea pig for the week. That'd be fun. Also, it means that
Yeah.
my Thursday lab will be like, whoa, we don't have no reagents no more because Dr. Penny's people have used up all the flies.
Yeah.
Not that that's ever happened before. Lindsay, that's part of trying to figure out who you want to be with in terms of your lab partner. I don't mind who goes what week. You can sort that out with yourself, or if you don't wish to do that, I can assign it for you. But we'll kind of hammer out those details over the next few days. It's gonna be weird. I'm not gonna lie to you. It's gonna be kind of a strange experience teaching a lab this way. But really, we were told we have to, so we are, right? Don't get any choice on that. Priscilla, no, we can't do that. I'm afraid we've got to figure out which half are going to be attending on which week, but we'll figure that out beforehand.
So it sounds like we're only going to be attending half of our labs then.
Correct, but you'll be doing all of the lab work.
Oh, interesting.
So just get back to you in a second, Kevin. So the impetus behind this is that we've got a couple of big multi-week lab projects. One of them is you'll actually be crossing flies together to look at linkage, which is actually pretty cool. And for the second half semester, you'll be doing some really cool kind of biotechnology, bioinformatics type experiments, also to do with like working on that particular gene that you were studying in the flies. And so over the summer, we didn't do that. And I think students lost out a lot from not being exposed to some of those techniques and particularly some of those bigger experiments. And so this alternating week thing was our best compromise of getting you at least some of that experience while still trying to make it as safe as possible, right? That's essentially the compromise, and it is a compromise because we can't have you all present at the same time, right? And comply with the safety requirements, and I wouldn't want to do that for obvious reasons anyway. But also, I don't want you to miss the chance of doing PCR or running a gel or manhandling flies or whatever, right, using microscopes. So even though you're not going to get the full experience, which is still sad, you're going to get some of it at least. So did that answer your Kevin question? I was slightly lost. Oh yes. So going back to, and again, we'll talk about this in detail in lab. But essentially, every week will be kind of like a lab exercise you do in lab. I don't know how Maurice is going to be managing this, but for my lab, I'll also have my computer set up and give like a little mini lecture at the beginning, so the people not present can watch that, so they know what they're doing.
Okay.
And then there's a whole bunch of assignments on Blackboard, which are essentially taking you through the questions that are in your lab handouts.
Okay.
And so the aim is that you'll all have the data, right? Whether it's a gel picture or fly cross data or whatever it might be. And you'll still be doing the same analytical process, right? And working through the information. It's just only half of you will be physically present in the lab to do the actual work at any one point.
Yeah. So with a question with that would be for some of the data that's gathered, I mean, I don't know what the labs are specifically, but if some of the work for the lab that we're all going to be doing, if that's a lot of it's data dependent and the data is incorrect, are the ones who aren't going to be there to collect it, are they going to be penalized for that?
No, there's never any penalization for incorrect data. It's all about process.
Okay.
You know, because sometimes you do just screw up an experiment. I've done it plenty of times.
Yeah.
But as long as you show that, you know,
The
even if your
process is
data is
right.
completely wacky and weird, like the corn genetics lab is always a case of this. Sometimes things just go like totally nuts. But as long as you've shown that you've gone through the process of, you know, working out the expecteds and doing the chi-square properly, even if you're, you know, you're like a highly significant p-value, which is obviously not what one would expect,
No.
you're not going to lose any marks for that.
Okay, it's just
Because
it's more of the process more than anything.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
Because again, sometimes mistakes are made, but as long as you've shown you've gone through the actual process of analyzing the data correctly, then it's easy to fix and make sure that you collect data properly next time, right? If you're into counting corn, it's a lot harder to fix you not being able to actually analyze it properly.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Yeah. So that's the general deal for the labs. But we'll also be, Maurice and I, we're going to be meeting tomorrow virtually to kind of go through the labs and make sure we're both on the same page. And then ideally by the beginning of next week, we'll have sorted out who will be working with who and who will be attending when. Again, I'm not sure how Dr. Penny has organized that. I can't speak for how he's doing it because, you know, he's doing it his way and I'm doing it my way, but we'll get all that sorted out so that we're, you know, ready to run beginning on Tuesday.
Okay.
But yeah, if you have questions specifically for Dr. Penny's lab section, your best bet is just to ask him. He seems like a nice guy. And he'll be able to answer those specifically because I don't know exactly how he's going to be managing that aspect of the lab. I've got it set up in a way that, for good or ill, makes sense to me. Not sure how well it's going to work. He may have actually had the better idea of how he wants to do it. But I don't know how he's doing exactly. I think that's pretty much it for me. Oh yeah, and also if I ever do overrun, you're more than welcome to leave. Don't worry about kind of dropping out of the Zoom. Sometimes these can go on a little bit longer. I try and make sure that they don't, because I know that you may have classes after this as well. So this has run over a little bit longer, largely because of having some good questions. But typically I'll keep this 2 times, so at least virtually you can get to your next lecture on time, or get up and just like stretch your legs if necessary, right? Because sitting down staring at a computer all day is not 100% fun.
No.
So anyway, last question from oh hey Lydia, good question about going over GenBio 1 genetics and inheritance stuff. It's not going to hurt, but we will be going over it in sufficient detail that you can do without doing that if you wish. It really just depends on how you study best personally and how you feel about it. But essentially, again, make sure you go over this material before we meet in Zoom to get the most out of these Zoom meetings that is possible. Cool. Right, I'm going to sign off again, or sign off for first time, so you can get off to whatever else you need to get to. I'll send out a Blackboard announcement when I've got this uploaded and everything squared away for today. So those will be regular things after every class as well. And that's pretty much it. So have a great weekend, everybody, or rest of the week rather. And I shall see you next Tuesday. Cool. Thanks very much, everybody.